around by 8:05, so I'm going to call the meeting to order. In a Rotary Club, we ring a bell, so ding ding, and the meeting is now called to order. And
cool.
I don't have much else to say this morning. We had a good virtual wine party last week. We actually had a speaker first. It was a really good speaker. Her video isn't up on the site yet because she asked me to do some not quite super editing, but to cut out some things that she didn't want said on the recording. So I just finished taking that out last night. Oh, Auburn Hills is joining us. This is Sharna. I'll let Sharna join us. Hey, Sharna, good morning. It's fun. You can't necessarily talk to somebody immediately because either theirs or ours isn't through to them yet.
Yeah.
Good morning, Sharna.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Okay. I've already rang the bell. We're already having the meeting. Our guest this morning is Liz Hood and I can read the sign so I don't have to read in my notes.
You can, yeah.
Unless I try and read it backwards. The Farmington and Farmington Hills Foundation for Youth and Families. Liz is, I don't know your title there, Liz. I could have looked up my notes. But
well, my illustrious title is actually administrator, but I'm the only staff member, so I'm kind of like the party of one who does everything. So yeah, that's me.
Head honcho.
Yep. So yeah. Okay. Shall I start?
You can go if you want to.
I can go. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very, very much for inviting me here this morning, Phil, and good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to be here and tell you all about the Farmington and Farmington Hills Foundation for Youth and Families, which is a massively long name and a bit of a mouthful. So from here on in, I'm just going to refer to it as the Foundation. So just before we start, quick survey. Give me a quick wave if you've actually heard of us. If you've heard about the Foundation? Awesome. Anyone else?
Well, I know now, but that's all.
You know now, yes. Okay, cool. That's good to know. So what I'm going to do this morning, I'm just going to talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, how we've been impacted by the whole COVID situation, because obviously, like everybody else, it's had an impact on our work and everything. And then how we see ourselves going forward in these, and sorry to use this phrase because I know we're all sick of it, but in these unprecedented times. So I'm just going to screen share my little presentation. Come on, hurry up. Right, here we go. All right, is that working?
Excellent.
Cool. All right, so who are we? We are a non-profit 501c3 and we operate in the Farmington Hills community. We started in 1995 and we originally started to help the after-school program for middle school students, which was being funded under a juvenile justice grant, which was about to expire. So they needed a new home for the finances for that. So that's why we actually started. Then in 1999, they changed the name to the Farmington Hills Community Foundation because we were starting to have a broader outreach in both the Farmington Hills communities. Moving on in 2006, that was when we started our endowments with the Community Foundation for Southeast Michigan. And then that's when we got our current name. And since that time, we've expanded our focus hugely in the Farmington Hills community. And our goal is granting funds to many worthwhile programs in the community. And we'll talk a bit more about those in a minute. Just very quickly, this is our board of trustees. They are all people from the Farmington Hills community. You may know some of those people, may know some of those names. So that is our Board of Trustees. What is our mission? So our mission is to enrich the lives of youth and families in our community. But what does that actually mean, really? I think a lot of the time what we've done, particularly with the after school program, and then with another program, which I will talk about a bit later on, is we've had a typical thing of answering the call in the community. So what does the community need? How can we go about it? And I've just noticed a spelling mistake on there. Amazing how many times you go through something and don't see it. So yeah, I know. It's like when you proofread your own stuff, it's never good. Okay, so that's our mission.
That's a great mission, by the way.
Thank you.
Or mission.
Yes, I will correct that before it goes out on YouTube, if you don't mind. So, all very good having a nice mission, but what do we actually do? So, we try and address any critical social and cultural community needs. So what do we mean by critical social and cultural? Critical needs are the kind of basic needs in the community. So really, if you think about things like food pantries, clothing closets, that kind of thing. Social needs are the community and social education and support organisations. And I'll talk about these a little bit more, these categories, when we look at some of our previous grantees. And cultural is sort of arts and cultural programs and organisations. So we try and support our community by responding to any community needs and opportunities. So we're always sort of out there looking to see, you know, what could we do next? Who can we support next? And how do we actually support these programs and organisations? We actually do that by giving out strategic grants. We do this twice a year. We have 2 grant cycles a year, one in the spring, one in the fall. People apply for grants, we then review them. If they meet our grant criteria, then they get hopefully get grants issued to them. And obviously, in order to be able to give out those grants, we have to raise funds to be able to do that. And we also continue to build endowments which will benefit our community in perpetuity. So we actually have our endowment funds are with, as I said before, the Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan. So for those of you who prefer sort of visual things to words, these are just some key facts and figures about some things that we do and some numbers. So as you'll see, we've been going in the community for 25 years. Last year, we awarded over $40,000 in grants to various organisations in the community. We've given away since 1995 or more than $650,000 in grants.
Wow.
Yeah, we have 9 hardworking board members. We have well-established endowment funds with Southeast Michigan. So lots of good things going on there. So in terms of who we give our grants to, so that's quite a list there. I'm sure there's some familiar names in that list to most of you. I just wanted to pick out a couple of examples from each column, if you like. So I guess you're probably all familiar with CARES of Farmington Hills.
Yes, we are.
Yes, okay, so CARES have been a big grant recipient of ours since their inception a few years ago. Neighbourhood House, again, another food pantry, Heartfelt Harvest, the Operation Common Good. Then in the middle column, there's a few things in there, like the Farmington Farmers Market. We've sponsored the last few years for their Power of Produce programme, which is for children to come to the farmers market and to learn about where food comes from. So that's kind of like an education thing. We've got quite a few literacy programs in the community that we've sponsored. For example, there was one at the Farmington Community Library for preschool readers a few years ago. The Antioch Lutheran free reading tutors, where they were providing reading tutors to elementary age children who were falling behind with reading at school. The West Oaks Civitan program is for continuing literacy skills over the summer break. Then there's a couple of others in there, such as Stand with Trans and Sib for Sib, who are kind of like mental health support groups for various facets of the community. Then if we look at the arts and culture things, we have regularly supported the Farmington Musicale with grants for their music program that they run every year. The Kickstart Farmington received a grant last year for their movie festival, which unfortunately ended up going online because of COVID, but they were still able to run it, which is good. And so on. So these are all grants that have been issued predominantly from our 2 grant cycles a year. So
fantastic.
We also have, just wanted to give a brief mention, we also have a couple of designated funds that support very specific purposes, and I will talk a little bit more about those in a couple of slides' time. So you may have noticed from the previous slide that the grants that we've given out are actually sort of separated into 3 distinct columns. And when we sort of thought about this, this was how we came up with the kind of 3 different categories, and this is how we kind of like to think of it. So we have our critical needs, we have our social needs, and we have our cultural needs. And we kind of like to think of this as like our sort of hierarchy of community needs. So if you have like your critical needs on the bottom of the pyramid, so people need to have basic needs, and then on top of that we can then start to think about the sort of social and educational things in the community. And then when we've got all that sorted, sort of icing on the cake is all the arts and culture stuff. So when we're giving out grants, we tend to think about most of it going towards the critical needs, then social, then cultural. So I mentioned that we have a couple of designated funds, and I wanted to talk very specifically about one of those designated funds because this was one of our kind of calls to action a while back, and it's something that we have supported ever since. So the Bountiful Backpack Programme, has anybody heard of that in the community?
Yes, I believe we donated to that years ago.
Awesome. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, the Bountiful Backpack Programme was originally started back in 2008 at William Grace Elementary School, and it was started by Pam Green, if any of you know Pam Green, who's now on the Farmington Public Schools Education Board. And they kind of noticed at William Grace that there were a lot of kids who were coming into school on a Monday morning and they were hungry because they did not have food over the weekend. So they started a program whereby they started to collect food and so those kids could take food home at the weekends. And that grew over time into a program whereby elementary school kids who are eligible for free school lunches can apply to become part of the program, and they go home with a backpack full of food on a Friday evening, so their family has food for the weekend. So that is a partnership between us, between the foundation, Farmington Public Schools, and the local community. And how does it work? It actually works very well because it's all run by Visions Unlimited, who are the educational establishment for 18 to 26-year-olds in the community. So it gives those students great employment training opportunities. So they go out, they do all the shopping for the program, they do all the packing up of the backpacks, and then they help with the distribution to the elementary schools. Now, typically every year, the program supports around 100 families across all the elementary schools in the Farmington Public Schools district. So that's kind of one of our designated funds and our signature programs. So, okay, so you may have noticed on the background of my slides, I've got a big 25 in the corner. That is because we are celebrating our 25th anniversary this year. And back at the end of 2019, we had huge plans for the year. We saw it as a great opportunity, not just for celebration, but also as an opportunity to get out in the community and get more people familiar with who we are and what we do. We find that we have like, you know, a core group of supporters, but we find that we're not necessarily that well known in the wider community. So we thought, yes, this is a fantastic opportunity. So we were planning to do lots of community outreach at various events such as the Farmers Market, the Founders Festival, Harvest Moon, and all those good things, which of course didn't happen. We also had a fantastic celebration 25th anniversary gala dinner planned, which was supposed to go ahead on May 1st. And obviously that kind of didn't happen. And we also had planned to have a fall event to showcase the backpack program at Visions, and we wanted to combine that with our fall grant awards and do kind of like a community breakfast where we invited people to come and, you know, find out about the backpack program and so on. So we had all these fabulous plans, and it was going to be a super busy year. And then, of course, we all know what happened next. So, yes, this little guy came along. So, of course, that kind of threw everything into a little bit of chaos. So, one of the first casualties of our grand plans for our 25th anniversary was our gala dinner. We had to very quickly decide that that was not going to happen. We thought about postponing it to the fall. Obviously, that clearly wasn't going to happen either. So this was a kind of a double hit for us, because not only did it mean we didn't have that opportunity to celebrate our 25th anniversary and get out there and tell people about us, but it also, our big dinner every year is our main fundraiser. So the first impact for us was income went down big time. At the same time, we quickly realised that because of what was going on with everybody, with people being laid off, people being furloughed, people getting sick and so on, that the community needs, particularly those at the bottom of that pyramid, the critical needs, were going to very quickly go up. So we knew that we had to, in you know, typical form for us, we had to answer the call, and we knew we had to do something. So what did we do? Well, the first thing we did was we introduced an emergency grant program. So we were, around the time that COVID hit, we were just before our spring grant cycle. So we made the decision that we would go ahead with that anyway. But we also realised that we probably needed to do something to get money out there to those critical need organisations in the community that were starting to see an increased demand on their resources from what was going on with the pandemic. So we introduced the programme whereby those organisations could apply for grants of up to $2,000. And so far, we have given grants to, so obviously Cares of Farmington Hills was a huge one where they were seeing a lot more people coming in with food insecurity and needing services from them. So CARES was one of our emergency grant recipients. Sunflower Bakehouse, I don't know how many of you were familiar with what they were doing during the first part of the pandemic, and still are doing, but they were actually baking extra bread and donating it to the food pantries in the area. So they applied for a grant to enable them to produce 1,000 more loaves of bread to give out to those food pantries. Wow. So we were part of that, and then they were also raising other money through the community as well. So if you bought a loaf of bread, you could like pay it forward and buy another one, kind of thing. So that was an awesome program to support. We also supported Operation Common Good, which is run through Farmington Public Schools. You may have seen dotted around the community the little giving boxes. So we gave them a grant to, and in those giving boxes, they had kind of household cleaning supplies and things like that for people that were in need, that needed to have those things that they couldn't necessarily afford to buy. So we made a grant to those people to buy supplies for the giving boxes around the community. And then the final one that we've made so far is to Farmington Youth Assistance. Now, Farmington Youth Assistance, they quite often do scholarships for summer camps for people who are in need. This year, obviously, a lot of summer camps weren't happening, but what they did do was they did a phenomenal summer camp in a box program for families. So they received a grant for supplies to go in those boxes that people could then take away and have a week's worth of activities to do at home during the pandemic.
Very clever.
So yeah, that was another good program to support. So some really good stuff going on in there in the community, and obviously very happy to be able to support those programs. We are still open for applications for emergency grants because obviously, this pandemic thing hasn't gone away. So we're still open for emergency grant applications. Now, so this was the kind of the needs going up. So obviously we had to kind of balance this with the income going down. We had to kind of do something to balance that equation out a little bit. So what we did was, when we were in the process of organising our gala dinner, we had a number of corporate sponsors on board to sponsor the event, which is what we do every year. So we're like, well, okay, these guys have agreed to sponsor our event. What if they were prepared to become our corporate sponsors for the remainder of the year to enable us to still be able to give out grants and so on? So we approached everybody and we said, hey, look, this is how it is. You agreed to sponsor the event. Would you be prepared in return for, us putting your name on our website, on our letterhead, mentioning you in press releases and things like that? Would you be prepared to be our corporate sponsors for the remainder of the year? And we were very, very lucky in that the following companies all turned around and said, absolutely, we are very, very happy to do that. So huge thank you to our corporate sponsors for 2020, who are Mercedes-Benz Financial Services, Beaumont, Hubble Roth & Clark Engineering Company, Sellers Buick GMC, and Wright Beamer. So without these guys, we wouldn't have been able to do the emergency grant program and be able to do our full grant cycle as well. So huge kudos to those guys for supporting us.
Very good.
So with all that in mind, where do we go from here? Well, we know that things are still pretty uncertain. We don't really know where things are going to go, what's going to happen. And we know community needs are probably going to change, but they're definitely not going to disappear. So we know we have to keep doing what we're doing and giving out grants. So what we can do is try and anticipate, identify and address those needs as they occur. As I said, we're still accepting applications for emergency grants. In addition to the emergency grants, we are also running our regular fall grant cycle. The application deadline for that is the 15th of October. So if you know of any programs and organisations in the Farmington Hills community that may be looking for funding for something, for a program that benefits youth and families, then take a look at our website. I'll put the contact details up in a moment. And by all means apply, and we will consider their application. Obviously, in order to support all this grant giving activity, we have to continue to raise funds. We know that we are probably not going to have the opportunity to do an in-person fundraising event until probably the second half of 2021 at the earliest, with the way things are. But we realise we're probably going to have to bite the bullet and do some sort of virtual fundraising event probably in the spring next year. So we're kind of looking and learning from everybody else's virtual events to see what we could do with that. We will also be doing an end of year mailing, and we obviously always have a donate button on our website as well if anybody wants to give funds in the interim. So we know that we have to remain very flexible in the current circumstances. We do that anyway. We've always been very flexible. We have to adapt to whatever's going on, to changing circumstances in the community, and that we have to continue to answer the call in the community, and whatever that call may be. So that's kind of about it, all I have to tell you about at the moment. Thank you very much for listening to what I have to say about the foundation and learning a little bit more about what we do. If you want to connect with us, that is our contact details. We have a website. We are on Facebook. Have to admit, we are not the most social media competent organisation in the universe, but we are working on that. So please take a look at our website, and I am open for any questions if anybody has any questions.
I got a couple questions.
Sure.
Liz, I think our club has touched the foundation, or the foundation touched us over the last number of years.
Mm-hmm.
Two names come to mind, and if you know the names and recognize them, are your memories good or bad? First, our late member Jan Dolan, I believe,
yes,
member of your organization.
Correct. Yeah.
And if I remember right, also back in the '95 timeframe, Kitty Ostach.
Yes.
Was very much involved with that after-school program.
Correct. Yes.
So I just wanted to acknowledge that, you know, that they were involved, and that our Rotary Club has had some participation with the foundation over a good number of years.
Excellent. Yes, I remember. So Jan Dolan, I remember she passed away. It was literally must have been a few weeks after I joined the foundation 4 years or so ago. So I unfortunately, I never actually met Jan, but she was one of our board members at the time that she passed away. So, but I know she served the foundation for a number of years and was greatly missed by everybody. Kitty is still very much on our radar, as obviously she's still involved with the after school program, but she's now also involved with Cares of Farmington Hills. So we're kind of in sort of regular communication with her on that. So yeah, she's still very much involved in a indirect but different way. So cool.
Did the foundation come about because of Neighborhood House, or somehow related to Neighborhood House? My memory goes back to about 1985.
Okay, so originally the foundation was formed to actually look after the funding for the after school program through the City of Farmington Hills. So that was why it was originally funded. I think there was the Juvenile Justice Grant, which was about to expire, so they had to find another home for the funding. So the foundation was formed for that. So I think that the focus for the first few years was on the after school program. The backpack program was another kind of big focus area when that initially kicked off. Neighbourhood House have been a grantee of ours for many, many years. So that we're involved with them that way. We also have, I don't know if you know Alan Maxey, who was the chair of Neighbourhood House for a while. He's one of our board members too. So we have involvement with them that way.
Good.
I just want to tell you, Shauna Hatcher was on the call and she had to go. She's a very busy lady. She had to go join another event somewhere, obviously through Zoom again. And she did invite you, Liz, if you've got the time and the capability to join her. There's a meeting, I think it's her club, at noon today. And she was asking if you wanted to join them at noon to talk about how your foundation, what you just basically went through, adapted amidst this COVID thing. Her words were, please let Liz know if she wants to join us at noon to talk about how the foundation has adapted amidst COVID. We'd love to help her. It's going to be an informal exchange of ideas, but it's impressive how the foundation has been able to adapt. Enjoyed the meeting, she says. Thanks.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay, we can talk afterwards, Phil, and you can give me details and I can connect with her.
Send you I'll send you the same link she sent me. If you have the time, it'll be her club meeting. So you would be able to repeat at least that part. And maybe
she's Auburn Hills, is that right?
She's Auburn Hills.
Okay, sure.
Not quite in the community, but
not quite. But well, it's funny though. You say you're Farmington Hills, and you go somewhere else, and then there's somebody who knows Farmington Hills, or works in they live in Auburn Hills, but they work in Farmington, or they grew up in Farmington, or their mum's from Farmington, or so that there's quite often connections back to the hang on, what on earth just happened there?
Oh, your screen timed out.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna stop share. Okay, so yeah, you'd be surprised at the number of people that have connections somehow to the community, even if they're not immediately living in Farmington Hills. So
right. Yeah, we have that through Rotary. It's the same thing. Where your club isn't necessarily where you live and work.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah. So anyone else got any questions or comments? Or
my comment is, I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
And I'm really, really glad you joined us.
Thank you.
I know I was not aware of the organization, never mind what things you have done in the community. Very impressive.
Yeah, I think that's one of our things is we have like a sort of core group of supporters who know us very well, but it's actually trying to get out into the wider community and just let more people know what we do. And that's one of our kind of things we're working very hard on at the moment, which of course got derailed by COVID, because that was our grand plan for our 25th, was to actually increase community awareness of who we are and what we do. So the more opportunities like this that we have to get out and talk to people, the better for us. So we very much appreciate the opportunity to talk to you this morning. So
well, when I finished processing this recording, it should be up there either later today or tomorrow morning. You can, if you'd like, you could point people to the recording.
Yeah.
Anybody else with a comment, thought, question?
I'd like to throw out a thought, please, Phil. I've given a number of presentations that I call the joy of music, and I bring in recordings and I speak about very accessible, joyful music. Mozart, Beethoven, Bach, and I've given it a retirement home, I've given 2 presentations at a home for beginning Alzheimer's patients. I gave it at a home for homeless veterans. Now, surely during COVID, it wouldn't work out, but if it's a fit at all, I love to do it. It's about 1 hour, could be more if we wanted, where I play some music, talk a little bit about it. And I was down in Houston and gave it at a place where my daughter volunteers, and they asked me back. So a year later, I returned and did some more. So that's what I'd like to do. I don't know if it's a fit for anything that you're doing, Liz, or that you know about.
No, certainly there's a lot of, the arts and culture organisations that we deal with. I'm thinking like, the Farmington Musicale, for example, might be a good fit. But yeah, it's good to know about though. The
Farmington Music House?
Musicale.
Oh, Farmington Musicale.
Yeah, so they do. They run a number of free community concerts every year. They also run like an annual music competition for young people, sort of middle school, high school students. So that they're kind of like a music appreciation and society kind of thing, so in the community. So it's good to kind of connect all these different things going on in the community, because I think a lot of the time there's people are doing things but they don't know what else other people are doing in the same field. So it's good to make all those community connections, I think.
Thank you.
Totally agree. Maybe we'll get you on here one day, Stan. You do a presentation for us.
I'd love to.
I'll be back.
I'll be here.
Any questions, anybody? Well, I'll let you get back to work, everybody, including Liz.
Well, thank you so much.
Really good presentation. Really enjoyed it.
Excellent.
Well, thank you very much for having me, everybody. Thank you. It's really appreciate the opportunity. So,
like I say, the recording will be up either later today or tomorrow morning.
Cool. Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.